Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Riddles Around the World podcast hosted by myself. My name is Johnny. Nice to meet you. Appreciate everybody that shows up and shows any kind of support to this. And if this is a topic you like to talk about or hear anything about, put some in the comments down below if you want to hear any specific topics. We are talking about conspiracy theories, mythology, and folklore creatures. So if there's any specific topics that you like to talk about or hear about, let me know, and we'll see what we can do. I'm joined by my brother, Mr. Shane.
Mr. Shane. Okay. Yeah, I'll
I
take it.
mean, you're a mister. I mean, you know. Today's topic at hand will be shows that have predicted the future to some degree or to perfect accuracy and the potential of time travel. So that is what we are going to be talking about today, and we are actually going to be starting off with a theory that Star Trek predicted the moon landing. So, Mr. Shane, if you'd like to take over and put any kind of words in with that.
Yeah, I'll start us off. The first thing that's interesting about this is that they knew a level of detail that's not normal. Because it wasn't just that they predicted that we were going to land on the moon, or even that they just predicted the year, but they picked the correct season of the year and where it was going to launch from, which were things they couldn't possibly have known at the time. We had several places where we could have launched from, even though NASA, as far as I know, has always launched from two places. There were several options, but they guessed the correct one and the year and the time of year, if not to the month and day. So the question for that is, how could they have known that in a show about space?
It's a good question. Now, jumping into that topic, we can potentially say something about time travel. That is a definite thought process. Did somebody possibly come back and be like, hey, I know this is just a TV show. Put this in there. So just the level of detail with that is very interesting for the simple reason that they picked the exact almost month and date of the year. That's a little crazy in my opinion. Let's
Now,
see.
personally, I'm a no man. So my first question is are there any ways we could prove this that are a little bit simpler? I'm an Occam's razor guy. Occam's razor is the idea that the the simplest answer is probably the best or most likely answer. So I would say that for a show about space, they probably had advisors from NASA telling them things about space. And they either overheard something or guessed something based off of what they knew from that person. But I also admit that that is an assumption that I have as little evidence for as we do of any other answer.
Even
What do you
if
think, Johnny?
NASA was to be advising them on specific topics, do you think they would disclose certain information such as almost a month and date of the launch and where they're going to launch at?
You're right. They shouldn't. And if they were smart, they wouldn't. But it's kind of like the idea of what happens when I drop my keys. Occam's razor would say that if I'm holding my keys and then they're on the ground, you could say I dropped them, or you could say I handed them to you and you dropped them. Which one's more likely? The fact is, there's less things that could go wrong with the assumption that I was simply holding the keys and dropped them because there's less variables. It's just me and the keys. I would go with Occam's razor and said the most likely one is they did what many shows do and brought in a subject matter expert who either said something they shouldn't have or people just made guesses based off of things that was safe for them to say. And it was just a coincidence. But I will also admit that, again, that is entirely assumption. I don't have evidence for that. So I'm not saying it's what I think, just that it's the simplest answer.
I understand that 100%. But making assumptions or uh, predictions and assumptions to that level is what throws me off about that one specifically. Just because, like, I could be over here in the conversation and writing down everything that we're saying right now, but I could take something you say out of context and guess, and it could be 100% wrong. So it's possible that they did hear what they were saying and guess correctly. So that was a I don't know. Like you said, there's not enough evidence to be able to say yes or no in
I would
that
say
particular
this
situation.
one doesn't astound me quite as much just because it's the only incident I know of from this show. The crazy ones are when you get into the shows that made multiple correct and accurate predictions.
Which
That's when it
is
starts getting a
actually what
little
we're about
tough.
to move into. about to move into The
Right.
Simpsons. Uh,
Yeah.
Number two, we're going to start off with the big one from The Simpsons. Donald Trump becoming president. They predicted that 16 years in advance. Now, I believe in sheer dumb luck. I am an Irish person. I believe in the luck of the Irish. My issue with that is, how do you predict something 16 years into the future to the degree that they predicted? They didn't just predict the fact that, hey, Donald Trump's going to be president. They predicted, if you go back and watch the episodes where they're waving, where they have the crowds behind them, you can almost depict person to person behind Donald Trump at his rallies when he was advertising to become president, or when he's on the escalator waving.
Yeah.
To me, the level of detail that they had in that is ridiculous. Like, it obviously there's not evidence, and maybe people watched the episode and dressed accordingly to sit behind them properly.
Yeah.
That takes that's a large effort, and I don't see us as Americans doing that much just to make a TV show look like it predicted the future. So to me, that one's a very, very interesting one, because that's not the only things the Simpsons have predicted. So I'll let you say your piece about that if you want.
All right. It's interesting. There were two Harvard mathematicians who came up with what they call the law of truly large numbers. And they did this partially in reference to all the predictions made by The Simpsons. And the two things they pointed out were, one, just the sheer number of episodes and material they've put out makes it more likely for them to have coincidences like that. And the second thing was the number of writers they have. A lot of people don't know this, but The Simpsons has a huge team of writers, most of which have an incredibly educated background. I mean, these aren't guys who wrote comics in the basement. These are guys who graduated from Harvard with degrees in law or science or physics or whatever, right? So these are highly educated guys. It would be easier for them to put together the pieces of what might come next. So the question isn't just how do they make so many predictions, because the fact is, statistically, they could do that. The question is, like you said, the details in them. And some of those can be explained, like how they got the idea of Trump coming down the escalator as the president and having the presidential pin on his coat or whatever. That's not hard to figure out, because the president travels a lot. He uses airports.
Mm-hmm.
Airports have escalators, whatever. But they get to some other details outside of especially Trump. Some of their details, there is no particular way you can come up with them predicting things they did as far back as they did.
Mm-hmm.
If you do want to talk specifically about Trump, though, you can bring up the fact that in 1988, he did have an interview where he was asked if he was interested in becoming president.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, he either said no or said he wasn't sure, something along those lines.
I do believe he said that he would, and if he did, he would run as a Republican, simply because it'd be easier to get their vote.
Right.
Do not quote me on that, but I do think that's what he said in that.
That sounds more like what he said. I just know that it wasn't a no, and then the topic never went away. So I'm not sure when the episode of The Simpsons aired, but I do know the discussion of him becoming president was a long-running thing. So I guess what I really want to know for that was, did they write that because they thought it was going to happen, or did they write it to make fun of him, and then it happened? But I guess I can't really find that one out.
That episode was actually aired in 2000. It was Bart to the Future, because Lisa took over for Trump after his stay as president had ended. So I mean, again, that's 16 years to have a prediction as accurate as they did. Not only the fact of him being president, like I said, it's the level of details that they got behind that is what puzzles me the most.
I'll be honest, I haven't watched The Simpsons, but I would like to know, what year did they predict he'd be president in? Do we know that?
That is a good question. I don't think,
because I hadn't thought of that. I'll be honest, it didn't occur to me till just now.
I
do know they
had
12 years before they wrote it, just since the famous interview where he said that. But I don't know if they said, because that would be a really interesting detail to figure out if they had predicted it. But I really don't know.
That is true. I can look that up and see.
While you're doing that, I will also say one of the cool things about the law of very large numbers is the idea that the higher there is of any instance, the more likely it is to have coincidences. But what's funny about that is you get shows like The Simpsons that have like 30 seasons and hundreds of episodes and tons of writers, and they have all these variables that add to it. But then you have stuff like Star Trek, which was a big show popularity wise, but really didn't have the level of budget and writers that you would have expected it to have, and they're still pulling those things off. So you got to start wondering what it is that's made so many different kinds of shows be able to make those kinds of predictions.
I mean, I'm a skeptic, so I'm gonna go with there is a possibility, and when I say possibility, I mean like a 0.0001% chance that this is a real thing. Just because like the science that would have to go through it. We don't know how black holes work. And we've been studying them I don't know how long. So to turn around and be like, hey, yeah, we know how to time travel, but we don't know what goes on in a black hole. That's kind of where my skepticism goes to.
Maybe we should have a cast about black holes sometime, because I don't believe in black holes. But anyways, that's a different discussion.
Another discussion for another day. But yes, I do agree with that. Because there is a lot of theories about black holes out there. If I'm reading this correctly, it's saying 2016.
So it's pretty close.
Yeah, it says, as we know, we've inherited quite of a budget crunch from President Trump. Lisa says to her staff, who informed her country due to her predecessor. In actuality, Trump will likely be the 2006 GOP president nominee. Sorry.
So what I'm looking at is kind of awkwardly worded,
yeah.
but it looks like it says the same thing. So
yeah,
so they hit the nail on the head with that one.
So again, I mean, the level of detail and accuracy in that is what is insane, in my opinion. That to me, that almost speaks.
And then there's that.
Yeah, it's like you could be like, no, that was just they had a good guess, and you're like, really? They guessed that he was going to be president in 2016. To me, they might have had somebody whisper something in their ear, and they were just like, "What was that?" And then he was gone.
Yeah,
but that could just be it could be a coincidence, 100%.
And that's why they call it Bart to the Future. Is Marty McFly showed up and told them what was coming. So they did a little Back to the Future homage with the name. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I did not know that. So I wonder if there's any formula to how they picked the year, or did they just
whether it
pick one that was
going to be
election year?
It might have been sheer dumb luck, or it might have been somebody speaking in somebody's ear that knew a little thing about something. Again, this is all speculation. There's no way of actually knowing for sure, but the sheer number of things that the Simpsons have predicted to a T makes you question things like that 100%.
I will say one more thing. I did read one interesting source said that he believes that they did it just by using simple math and kind of estimating when the next time a Republican would take office would be, because they had an idea of who was going to be president in 2000 and what his popularity would be like, and they assumed that after that it would be a few years of a certain person, and then it would be Democrats for 2 terms, and then a Republican again. And they thought by that time it would be Trump. And if that's the case, then they're just incredibly intelligent. So I guess I could give them some credit for that, but that's still as up in the air as presidential elections are. That's still an incredible thing to figure out.
That's an incredible guess.
Yeah.
Nonetheless.
Yeah.
But moving on to our next topic, or next TV show that has predicted the future, Parks and Recreations. Their final season of their TV show did a 3-year time leap, and during that time leap, during the episodes, they went back and kind of told you what happened in the 3 years. And one of the things that happened was the Cubs winning the World Series, which I think at that point in time they hadn't won in over 100 years, I do believe. It'd been a very long time since they had won.
Yeah,
I think it was over 100 if I remember correctly.
It was 108 is what I found.
Yeah, and then they have an episode. They're like, yeah, everybody's real happy in Chicago. Cubs won, and then the next season, Cubs win. Now, maybe they would just do for a good win. Maybe.
I mean, after 108 years. Yeah.
That's a long drought to not,
Yeah.
have a decent enough team to be winning. But I mean, what are the odds? I mean, you're talking about the long number theory.
I mean,
Plug
the
those
chances
numbers.
are it ain't too long before it happens again. Right.
Plug those numbers in for you real quick.
Jeez.
But just the fact that, again, it was the very next year, or the season they were dealing with at the time. They was just like, maybe they watched the show and they was like, yeah, they said we won. We gonna win again. We gonna show them. We gonna make that real.
Hey, they were putting those positive vibes out, and it just made it happen.
They spoke into existence.
Yes, that's what happened. Yeah, yeah. That's what do they call that? Oh man, I'll phenomenology.
Hmm.
The idea that everything around us is fake, and so our thoughts influence the reality.
Are you
That's
saying
some
we live in
crazy
a
stuff.
simulation right now?
No, actually, according to phenomenology, nothing exists. It's insane. That's another one for another time. But I do think it's interesting when you see occasions where something a lot of people want it to happen, and then suddenly it happens when you don't think it's going to. Which I think we're gonna get to one of those topics in a minute, so I don't push that too much. But I do wonder if that's what that was. Is maybe they're just Cubs fans, so they put it in there hoping it would encourage somebody.
Maybe. I mean, but again, with that being, that's kind of like the Star Trek show has predicted a few different things, but to have a show like that just have a one-off prediction and it just happened to come true about something as simple as a baseball team winning the World Series. I mean, what are the odds? That's just, where I'm going with that.
I tried to look up some details on that and see if who they predicted they won against or any of that, but I don't think I couldn't find it anywhere. I don't know if it's even referenced in the show.
I watched the show, I want to say last year. I watched all of it, and I don't believe they ever said who they played or what the score was or anything like that.
So that's what would have made it crazy. If they'd have been like, "Hey, everybody's in a good mood because the Cubs won against so and so, and they did it in this many games." Now that would have been awesome.
Yeah.
But I think this one we could probably attribute to, like you said,
Sheer dumb luck.
Just sheer dumb luck and the law of large numbers. Because man, they were overdue for a team that usually plays pretty well and just couldn't make it in the end.
Well, speaking of teams that play very well and have a sheer dumb prediction, we can jump back to a movie that came out in 1990. It's called Quantum Leap, where they predicted to the T Super Bowl champions. And this one kind of holds a special team in my heart because my Steelers won. That was but they predicted damn near down to where the end game was. Like, what was it? At some point, we were losing by 3 points, and that was in the movie. So, I'm just saying, that was a long time ago. Somebody predicted the future, all right? Marty McFly came back in a DeLorean and was like, hey, put your money on the Steelers.
Man. All right. So the crazy one about this is how far ahead they predicted it. 6 years at least, if not 7, depending on production time and when it actually aired and all that. 6 to 7 years before the Super Bowl, they guessed it'd be in there. There's so many variables in that time period.
Not to mention
like turnover in coaches.
Football is a sport with injuries that happen every game.
Right.
There's no way of aligning those stars perfectly, in my own opinion.
You got turnover rates of coaches, of players, of all the other staff. You've got injuries. You've got weather. Man, you got sicknesses. If somebody just gets sick, like there are so many things that can change between making that prediction and the actual game. And then 6 years ahead of time, they didn't just know that they were going to be in the Super Bowl, but they knew that there'd be a point where they're 3 points behind. And I think the score was 2017 at one point where they were 3 points behind.
Yep.
That's insane. Like, I know that can happen in football. And so if they just wanted to say it was a football game, they could just come up with those numbers. But still, that is so oddly specific.
Yeah, just in the, like, my whole argument I have about this is the level of detail that they have behind it. They had it predicted all the way down to a 3-point almost lost, and then they turned around and came back. Just to me, that's some Back to the Future. Somebody took the cards and was like, "Hey, I'm letting you know right now, this is who wins this year if you trying to make some money."
Or maybe they can make them say, "Hey, if you say this, they'll win," right? Like that's how it worked. Was put these vibes out there, and if you do, they're gonna win.
Let's
Then put your money on it.
let's be honest. How many people probably actually watched Quantum Leap? That's a lot. A lot of people watched it. I remember watching it when I was younger. But how many people are gonna remember watching Quantum Leap and then it was like, oh hey, that happened exactly how they said it? Because I mean, Quantum Leap was I don't want to say it was a huge blockbuster because I honestly don't know, but it was a pretty big movie if I do remember, for its time at least. Let's see. What it came out in what, 96?
That's
Right.
what I was looking for. The game was in '96.
The game was in 96. My bad.
Yeah, yeah. The episode aired in 1990. So which again means it could have been as far back as '89 if they actually aired it in '89 or,
Yeah.
or filmed it in '89 and it didn't air till '90. So at least 6 years back. You also got to wonder how many of them were still alive to see that game and thought, man, didn't we predict this? Like, didn't we say this was going to happen?
Exactly. All right, so I think that's all the sports related ones we have at the moment, or that I have wrote down at least. We can move into a very popular TV show called Friends. They predicted a very special app that I'd say about 98% of the world uses right now. It's called Facebook. They didn't predict that it was called Facebook, but the way that it was explained and referenced into the show,
right?
Somebody knew Facebook was coming. They just didn't have a name for it. Because Ross was talking to his buddy Chandler, is in a 2003 episode. It said that Facebook was introduced later that year. So I mean, they might have. I wouldn't really say that might have been predicting the future. That might have just been a Hollywood producer.
It would have been 2 years in advance because it aired a year before Facebook came out. So with filming time, production time, then it actually making it to TV a year before Facebook actually was introduced. So that's a 2 years ahead prediction.
But that could have possibly been
a 30-second clip of Ross and Chandler. That's pretty interesting.
That could have just been a Hollywood thing. They kind of knew a little bit ahead of time, maybe somebody predicted that and was like, hey, we're going to throw this in here just because we know it's coming. I mean, it could have just been a simple one-off. Maybe Zuckerberg heard him say that on there and was like, hey,
that's not a bad idea.
I got you. I heard you talking about it. I'm going to make it a thing.
What's really cool about it is the way they introduce it is it's Ross just explaining how it works to Chandler, and then Chandler making some sarcastic comments because that's what he's good at, right? Mm-hmm. But his sarcastic comments are about what Facebook actually has been proven to do to people, where he talks about, great, I have a faster way to tell everyone what's negative in my life.
Yeah.
And now all Facebook does is give people bad news and depress the world. So that's interesting that I mean, they could use Chandler's sarcasm to put that out there.
I mean, they give us memes as well, that makes it a little bit better.
Yeah, I guess.
All right, so moving to the next one. I don't really know how well of a prediction this one would be, or if this is just technology catching up with us eventually, is the old cartoon, The Jetsons. I'm pretty sure that was around in your younger days. Some shows that you used to watch. Yeah. I remember watching them when I was younger.
Yeah, thanks for that.
They predicted that we would get flat screen TVs. Now, I don't know how many younger folk remember the giant box TVs that weighed 200 pounds. They didn't really weigh 200. They were just really...
some of them did. I'm pretty sure some of them did.
Some of them did, but some of them was just incredibly heavy. A lot of people don't have to deal with that anymore. But having a TV go from, I don't know, probably 28 inches wide, or the width of it, to being what 2 inches width. That's kind of a
Yeah.
big deal to a lot of people. Now, again, like I said, I don't know if that's so much predicting the future as it is just technology evolving over time.
Right.
That's where I'm going with that. I don't really think that they said it because I do believe they had said something about FaceTiming too, didn't they? If I do remember correctly, I'm pretty sure they had the phones that FaceTime people in their show.
I don't remember that. I don't know. I don't know. I do know it's not hard to figure out from technology that that could have been a possibility for the future. Because even in the 60s, when it first started coming out, computers were like the whole thing they do with computers was trying to get them to be smaller. So I don't think that is
Mm-hmm.
what is interesting is that it was the 60s. In the 60s, that many years ahead of time, they were like, this is going to happen. They
Yeah.
didn't say that, but they made it as this is what as if we're going to envision the future, this is what it's going to look like. That's pretty interesting for being a
Well,
time period where they were pretty focused on the past
I mean, if you look
because
at it
you
in
were
that,
either coming out of wars or you were trying to prevent future wars, one or the other.
yeah.
It was a very gloomy time for everybody, but in the middle of that, they had this comic cartoon that was like, hey, this is what the future is going to be like,
Well,
and
if you look at it
got it
from
right.
that perspective, they also said we'd have flying cars by I think it was 2020 or 2021.
Yeah, we're not quite there yet.
We're
Well, I don't
not.
know, maybe. Hey, we got jetpacks though, so
Do we really though? You got to be like connected to a hose and not. Nah,
I
can't
no,
do
I'm
that.
pretty. Don't they have one now that doesn't have to be connected?
If they do, I know nothing about it. I know they are working on a hover car. I don't know to any length of success they have on that. Personally, I wouldn't trust it because I mean, you got people that don't know how to drive actual four-wheel vehicles at the moment, so I really would not trust anybody in a flying vehicle.
Yeah. Uh,
Let's see.
yeah, they had. If I remember correctly, they've got some that don't have to have the hose. They just don't run for very long, and they're less stable because the weight of the hose actually stable being attached to the bottom of the jetpack actually stabilizes flight too.
Yeah, so we're not gonna have a Falcon Winter Soldier running around here anytime
Yeah,
soon.
not anytime soon. No. If we do, I would sign up for that prototype.
Oh,
I'd die, but I would try it.
oh, 100%. I would. I would. You're gonna give me Falcon wings? Sign me up right now. Let's do it.
Oh yeah, I would definitely end up
I
dead at the
will.
end
I
of it.
will be your test flight dummy, and I will fly over the ocean because I'm gonna fall in at some point.
I'll be a test flight dummy, but don't think you're going to get your equipment back, right?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And they'd be like, "All right, you're strapped in. You're not getting it back, buddy. Sorry. Hate to say it
It's either
to
going to be I'm stealing it or I'm wrecking it, one or the other.
you.
That's the only options.
Either you don't get it back or you're getting it back in pieces. You let me know which
Right.
one works for you right now. All right, so another one that's it's a little bit dark that we're gonna jump into the TV show Scrubs.
Speaking
Now,
of dying,
speaking of dying, yeah. So according to this prediction, it says if they would have listened to this TV show, they would have found him many years sooner than they actually did. So, said that I'm pretty sure it was the janitor, right? The janitor predicted and said exactly where Osama was hiding.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think I think almost to it to the exact location without saying the like latitude and longitude of where he actually was.
No, no. But I think it's just country. But what's interesting is at the time, no one knew the country because he could have been anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, he literally could have. He had the resources to literally be hiding anywhere. And then the janitor's just like, well, look in Pakistan. And then,
Boom.
sure enough,
We
not only did we
looked.
end up, not only did we end up finding him there and ending him there, but that's where we found out he had been the whole time.
Yeah.
So,
It's now. Do
wow.
you think that was just a one-off comment that he was just like, "Hey, look here," or do you think there is a chance that there is some outside intel? And I'm not gonna say from like a government body or something because come on now, how do you predict that?
See this is an instance where you can look at it and know that the law of large numbers doesn't actually work. Because even though there were so many episodes of Scrubs, that's not what they were about.
Mm-hmm.
This was just one little conversation in one episode, and he made one comment that was an accurate prediction.
That was just, it
And
was a single one-off comment that he made,
I mean,
and
and the only way that could be even close to coincidence is if one of the writers is like, he's probably still in a Middle Eastern country. I'm just going to say Pakistan. But even then, that's a crazy coincidence to just up and pick the
And
right one when no one knows.
how? When did that episode air versus when they found him? Do you know? I don't have that pulled up.
I believe it was 2006, wasn't it, when the episode aired?
Yeah. It aired in 2006. What year did we find him?
2011, wasn't it?
2000, 2010, 2000. Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
5, 6
So,
years earlier, they literally could have been like, "Hey, Scrubs said, go look at Pakistan." To me, there's, like I said, there's coincidences, and then there's essentially things that just happen that you can't just make it sheer dumb luck. You can't just say it was like, oh, well, they got lucky. They said this is what it is. Something to that level, 6 years in the future or in the past, and then that's exactly how it came down.
so the only argument you can make for that coincidence wise is going back to the large numbers. But the way you'd have to do it is just say that just the amount of media out there, we're going to encounter some random predictions like this. But that's not nearly as strong of an argument. That holds a lot less weight. Even with me, that holds a lot less weight for something that it could have been more specific, but it wasn't vague. It wasn't like he just said Middle East
Yeah,
or not Iraq.
but
he
again,
knew the country.
like you said,
Out of,
it's not. That's not what that show is about. It was literally just a one-off comment. It was just a joke from a janitor who likes to troll people, and he
right.
literally just stepped in and was like, "Yeah, I should look here," and then walks away. So
And with almost 200 countries in the world, he picked the one. He didn't pick a region like, oh, Middle East. He didn't pick a continent like Asia. He picked the country. So it's not as specific as it could have been, but it is unusually suspiciously specific to come up with that.
not only that, the fact that that's where he was the entire time.
Right. Like,
Like, did he watch an episode and be like, they're not gonna look here?
yeah,
Like,
that's what,
with all
he's
honesty, like,
he's a big Turk fan.
like there's just coincidences that I can't round to sheer dumb luck. There's
Yeah.
things like that you're like, look, bro, somebody is in somebody's ear. Somebody has to be. And like I said, I'm a skeptic, so I do believe that there are possibilities of things that we don't know, such as like time travel and a whole bunch of the list can go on and on of things that we can't 100% say is true, but we also can't 100% say it's false because we don't know.
Yeah.
So in that case, like, somebody could have simply just stepped up to a writer and be like, "Hey, bro, say Pakistan," and then walks off. And then the writer was like, "Yeah, write that down."
Why not?
Yeah. So like in cases like that, like, and we can go back to The Simpsons, and I can say the same thing. Like you said, these are Harvard level intelligent people writing for The Simpsons. Like, I mean, obviously not every single one of them are Harvard graduates. Get my words to work properly, but they are highly intelligent at what they do.
Right.
So being able to predict things, yes, but to that level of accuracy and detail is where I say somebody walked in and said, "Hey, Trump gonna be president," and then walked out. And somebody was like, "Yeah, we're gonna go with that." I think in some cases there are outside forces that help in this, and it's not just luck. Now, like you said, there's a bunch of theories that you know of that I know nothing of that could account to some degree of what's going on.
And for the sake of just thorough discussion, we do have to say it was more likely for him to be in a Middle Eastern country.
Yeah.
But still.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a weird one to me. And again, like I said, I think somebody might just walk in and be like, "Hey, Pakistan," and then walk out. Maybe it's their way of not messing with the
timeline. The
timeline.
countries on the dartboard, and that's where the dart landed. Who knows?
All right, let's see where it's going.
Yeah, there's just some cosmic force that was like, it's this one.
Possibly.
I mean, as likely as anything else, right?
Yeah, I'm not gonna say no to that. All right, so moving on to the next show that has predicted some stuff. a show that I watched as a kid, and I didn't really take it all that serious. The Chris Rock Show predicted that O.J. Simpson was going to write a book, and now, as far as I remember, they didn't say anything specific about the book, but they did say that he was going to write a book uh, about his hypothetical confession of if I did it. I don't think there was much detail to what they said the book was going to be, but they did full on say that, hey, he's going to write a book about what he did or didn't do. Because I mean, I don't have the evidence to convict anybody or say anything yay or nay about him. I don't personally care. It's just how it is. But yeah, I mean, for them to come in and be like, hey, yeah, that's a prediction that again can't really be summed up to sheer dumb luck.
I say there was one interesting detail that makes you wonder if he was watching the show, because I think the reference in it was something along the lines of him saying, "I didn't kill my wife, but here's how I would have done it," or something was the title of the book that Chris Rock did it in his show.
Yeah.
And then of course OJ comes out with his book, "If I Did It," and you're like, "Oh, that's interesting that you
Maybe he drew
play off
inspiration.
of it that way."
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe he drew some type of inspiration from it. Let's see.
and that was what 8 years in advance, 8 or 9 years.
I want to say it was 8. I
Yeah,
do believe. I could be
but he's
wrong
just
on that.
yeah 8 years ahead. He's like, "Oh, he's gonna write a book. He's gonna call it this," and then OJ does. But I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe he just knew him well because he had guest starred on the show before, right? So,
Uh,
so so maybe they just knew each other well enough that he was like, "This is what he's gonna do."
I
He
can't.
told me he's gonna do it.
I can't say for sure because, like, I mean, I was 10 or 11 when that show came out, so it was a long time ago. So I couldn't. I couldn't accurately tell you if he was ever on there or not. All right. So moving on to my final one that I have wrote down on my notes. I don't think I had sent you this one, but there was a TV show, an animated TV show called Legends of Chamberlain. I think it was Legends of Chamberlain Heights. They almost to a T accurately predicted the death of Kobe Bryant. Like, it was a raunchy TV show. It was all about dark humor, and it was just incredibly dark. But they did predict that Kobe was going to get into a helicopter and it was going to crash, and that it showed it on screen of that actually happening. So again, could you just push that onto a sheer dumb luck category, or did somebody know something? Because I do
Man,
believe that was, I want to say that was the early 90s to early 2000s. I don't remember exactly what year that was. There, actually, I got it pulled up. The episode which aired in 2006 or 2016, sorry. And then Kobe died in 2020. So I mean, but again, like I said, it predicted it to a T. He would be in a helicopter and he would crash that helicopter and die. So is that another one of those just coincidence that happened to happen in that situation, or did they know something? Because this isn't a well produced show, as far as I could be wrong. It was a Comedy Central show, so it did have funding behind it, but it wasn't a. I don't personally remember this show, so
I don't either. I don't know that I've even heard of it, but that is eerily close to reality there,
exactly.
with enough years in between to make it suspect. But there, I don't know. Again, you can get into a lot of different ways of how they could have come up with this. Some of them are a little simpler. Of again, they just picked one of the most popular names in the world, and the fact that he's got a private helicopter. They put two and two together, but you're still putting together some crazy details to come up with it.
Exactly. So
Because
that
he's got a
was.
million other ways around, and a million other things that could have gone wrong.
Mm-hmm. So that's where I'm getting to the point where I can say I honestly think that there are outside forces that are at play when it comes to writing shows and stuff like that. Because we went through what 10 of them shows,
Yeah,
and that's multiple predictions that most of these shows aren't about that specific situation or anything else in that exact way. Now, I would say The Simpsons is probably more into it because they have. We could probably do a whole episode on just things that The Simpsons have predicted
Oh yeah, yeah.
because there's more than I can
Even
count.
things that they possibly predicted, because they had an episode that some people think was a prediction of Kobe's death,
Yeah,
but
and
it has a lot less detail though, so it's just an assumption, but it's still interesting.
and the uh, prediction of COVID. There was an episode where it was referencing getting diseases and stuff like that. I don't remember exactly what episode that is. Like I said, we could go into.
That was the same episode with the helicopter crash,
Was it?
actually. Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
But yeah, to be able to go through here and predict certain things with certain levels of accuracy is beyond me. And this is going to lead me into the ending of this here episode, at least. If there was a full disclosure came out tomorrow in a hypothetical situation, if the government came out tomorrow and was like, time travel's real, this is how we predicted certain things, this is how this has came, what do you think the ramifications of that would be on the planet? Not just us as Americans, but on everybody on the earth. How do you
Oh
think
man,
that would play out to everybody?
I hate to be a pessimist, but I think it's going to be a whole new level of anarchy if that happens. Because the first question everybody's going to ask is, how have they been manipulating it? How have they been using that to manipulate other things?
Mm-hmm.
When what politician died was because they went back and killed him. What politician didn't become a politician, or what politician got his job because he paid somebody to go back and get him the job? Like, what have they influenced in the past? And at that moment, we will lose all trust for any government officials, anybody at any level of authority. And with no trust in anybody over us, it's going to be full blown just rioting in streets, everybody hating everybody, battling each other. There will be no peace anywhere. And that's, again, that's not just, like you said, not just here, that's anywhere. Because there's no way that there's only one place that has it if it's out there.
That is a very good thought process on that. To me, I think a lot of people would go through and ask the big question of why they allowed certain things to happen, like certain extreme bad things to go on if they had the ability to stop it. Now, that could get into a whole nother topic of the butterfly effect. Hey, we
Right.
stopped this, but it caused this, and we can't go back and stop that because it would have caused this. But I do 100% agree with you on that thought process. I think we would lose trust in everybody. I wouldn't even just say government officials or political leaders, but I would say everybody. I don't think
Right.
anybody would trust anybody ever again because you'd be like, have you set this up previously and it didn't work and you're coming back and trying it again? Or
Yeah.
did you pay to go into the future and look at things? To me, I'm not sure how that would work. It would be
And hey, well, I mean, your thought process is good too, because you think about, like I said, the butterfly effect. You think about some things that have happened in the past,
yeah.
and you got to wonder. You also think about Mandela effect, things that people remember, but it's not, the reality isn't what everyone remembers.
Hmm.
Is that because they changed something? Because they went back and actually saved Nelson Mandela. Is that why Katrina happened? What incredible catastrophe came from them going back and meddling in the past?
Or what incredible thing did they stop? And
Yeah,
was
yeah.
a
The,
spiraling effects to cause what we know happened.
yeah, they went back and cut off our move to clean energy, and that's why we don't have flying cars yet. That's why the Jetsons got that part wrong. Yeah.
But not only that, I mean, that could lead into a whole nother topic of multiverse. Uh,
Oh man. Yeah.
we could we could say that we go back in the future and we change one thing, and then that just branches into a different timeline. Like, I mean, it goes with the butterfly effect as well. The butterfly effect and the multiverse theory could go side and side because, say, we made the decision to record tonight instead of tomorrow night. What would the differences be? Would we have a different alternating timeline from, say, we recorded tonight and we didn't tomorrow? What if something like that was to happen? What if I was to spend $5 on a meal today and needed that $5 for something else tomorrow? it could tie into a multiverse because every time you make a decision, it branches off into something else of you making that opposite decision. So I mean,
Or is it the idea of a instead of a dynamic multiverse that's created at choices, just a static one where they all already exist at the same time? And in those, are we is it just is it time travel, or is it just us reflecting other ones, or predictions being made because we can see other ones?
would that be
Is
more of a parallel universe situation?
it, it would be it'd be the same thing, yeah, but they'd be parallel because they'd be existing at the same time.
Hmm.
So if it was a parallel universe, the idea would be that in parallel universes, time didn't move at exactly the same rate as it does here. So some of them might be a second or two ahead or behind. Some might be millions of years ahead or behind, and everything in between. So are they actually predicting the future, or are they dreaming glimpses of another one that's just a few years ahead of us and then writing it down?
That is interesting because there is a theory that states, I don't exactly remember the exact word for word, so do not butcher me in any kind of way, that your dreams that you remember, because if you think about it, if you remember your dreams, they're you're always the number one person in it. You see it from a first person view, like you're walking around. They're saying that
Yeah.
the theory is that the dreams that you remember are memories from your other selves. So, like, from a different multiverse standpoint, you might be catching glimpses of something else that has happened. So, I mean, again, that could be a whole nother episode that we could dive off into that.
So when we get there, we can talk about the psychosphere too, which is the idea of a almost hive mind consciousness, but
Yeah.
we can only access it in moments or at certain times. And so pieces of information or memories or whatever can reach our brains from that collective consciousness.
Hmm.
But that's a little more complicated too, and
Yeah, that'll be a whole
not all
nother
right for the
episode.
time we have left. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of time left, we are going to be wrapping it up. Uh, thank you for joining me today. Hopefully, you will be joining me on many more to come. But that's gonna be it. So, you got anything in closing you would like to say? Anything you'd like to plug? Any kind of work you do?
No, I should say again, ask questions. We like questions.
Oh yeah,
My favorite thing to do is to address questions somebody else has for me instead of just come up with my own stuff. So ask away.
yeah. Uh, but yeah, we're gonna end it. The only thing I can plug is my Twitch and YouTube, where this podcast will be going on to. I am a Twitch streamer. My name is the Riddler 1370. If you ever want to check me out on there, my content is a lot less serious on there. I laugh, joke, and play games. And I mean, I do get serious on there every once in a while. If you jump on there and have a conspiracy theory or something you want to talk about, I would happily talk about it on there. But also, where this is going to be going is the Riddler 1370 Gaming on YouTube.com. I am working on getting it on all the other platforms where you get your podcast. It will be going there soon. But yeah, if you got nothing else to say, then I think we're good. All right. See you. Thank y'all for tuning in. Y'all have a great day, and we'll catch y'all next week. See ya.